Okay, so tonight we're talking about letting go. Just as in that meditation we had just now, we practiced several techniques on letting go, how we'll deal with of those, and more detail on it. This is the first stage in meditation, and I quite uniquely put a lot of emphasis on this stage because in my experience, I found many people get stuck precisely because they skip this step. And they don't even do it sometimes, and they just try to jump into doing the more advanced techniques, and so they get stuck. Before you can go inside, which is what we're doing in meditation, we're going very deep inside of ourselves. Before we can do that, we have to let go of the outside. It's as simple as that. To go in, you have to let go of the outside. Similarly to going to sleep, anybody who's got insomnia or who's had insomnia will know that you can't fall asleep if you're still attached to and thinking about and worrying about things in your life, but other people and situations, work, or whatever it is, something that's outside of yourself, and that will keep you awake at night because it will not let you relax. You cannot relax your body or fidget, toss and turn all right. You cannot relax and go into these deeper brain waves like the theta brain wave, and certainly not delta, if you're still thinking about the external world, which is why we have to learn how to let go, both in terms of sleeping and in terms of meditating. Because when we're holding on to something, it will create physical tension in the body. If we learn how to let go, we have the opportunity to relax the body, as I did when we led meditation, relaxing each part of the body in turn, which I'll talk more about next week. But if we're still holding on to something, a big issue in our mind, for example, anger, there's very little opportunity to us to be able to relax the body in turn. You won't be able to. So this has to be successfully done before you can take the next step. What are we holding on to? Many different things. It can be something in the past, it can be something in the future, it can even be something in the present. But most oftentimes you will find it will be something related to somebody, usually that you'll be thinking about, though it can be a situation as well, for example, money worries or something like that. If it is the past, and that's the common one here, past resentments, things that we are still harboring in our mind. And that's the thing about anger. It is actually something we nurse, we feed it, we think about it endlessly, fueling it up. It is something we actually sort of water until it grows really big in our mind. That's what we call resentment. Resentment, the ironic thing about it is that the one that you're punishing with all that resentment is you. Because you're the one thinking about it and being miserable, and the other person doesn't even know that you're resentful and angry. So that is why we have to have acceptance, forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about them. It never has been about them. It's always been about you, so you can get on and be happy again. Angry, you're not happy. You have no while you're angry. So for your own benefits, that's why you then forgive. Although practice kindness and compassion, which are another forms of meditation, which we teach on the Thursdays and Tuesday nights, will also help us to gain the ability to let go. If we're having a particular problem with anger, meditation is a great way of practicing anger management, as developing the ability to forgive more easily by opening up our heart, healing our heart with loving kindness meditation and compassion meditation. Something very popular, for example, in Tibetan Buddhism, and the main teaching of the Dalai Lama, for example, is all about compassion and forgiveness. What I have found to be exceptionally helpful in this practice is learning to accept that everything you is imperfect. That is to say that we all have our own defilements of greed, anger, hatred, delusions, idiocy, ignorance, and all the rest of it. We all have it. Okay? There's nobody who escapes from all of this. Once we bear that in mind and recollect how we've been like that, then it allows us to recognize everybody else is going to be like that. So we shouldn't be too surprised that people are like that. Just think, most of the things you encounter in your life, with a little bit of recollection, you'll realize that they're not unique in that. There's many people in the world who have done that thing or said that thing or whatever that you're still resentful of. And you may even realize that you yourself may have done something similar. But even if not, you've done pretty bad things in your life, maybe a different bad thing, but it's still a bad thing, and they've just done a different bad thing. It's all the same, really. When you think like that, it allows you to sort of accept and find inner peace and let go. In practice, from a Buddhist perspective, we consider that these things are all just your own karma coming back to you of things that you actually did yourself. We reflect like this, saying, well, it's been done to me because I probably did it to them or something. And when we think like that, it allows us to find inner peace with it, to accept it and to let it go easier. It is a way of thinking that allows us to let go of things easier. In practice, as I said, when people are like that, and these are the kind of things that you will meet in life, whether you like it or not, you cannot have just people being perfect to you all the time. That doesn't happen to anybody. When you realize and accept that you cannot have everybody treating you perfectly, a perfect husband, a perfect wife, a perfect child, a perfect boss. Do they exist? I don't think so. When you realize that there are no perfect, one of the above, then you have to expand what you will allow in your life to what you will have to allow in your life, because that's just the reality of it. So you have to expand what you allow, and that you will find will create much more inner peace and much less anger. Because hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is a law eternal. That is a quote from the Lord Buddha, a very famous quote. When you read that, just recollect any of these tit for tat wars, whether it be about religion or whatever it be, whatever part of the world, that go on for years and years and years, and revenge and retaliation and retaliation for retaliation for retaliation over and over. It doesn't ever end through retaliation and revenge. Only through non-hatred, non-revenge will it ever end. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. For those who do realize this, settle their quarrels. They don't leave it undone. If you really recollect that we're all mortal, we're all what we call brothers in old age, sickness, and death. When we recollect that, it allows us to be more forgiving and expand our heart a little bit. Because holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one getting burned, nobody else. All that time that you're angry, all your stress hormones are going through. In fact, the incidences of heart attacks are much greater in people who have anger. In fact, you can have a heart attack just through being really angry. That has happened to some people. It is burning. It's not. They may not even be in the same room as you when you're really angry. You're throwing teacups around or whatever, and they're not even in the room. It's your teacups that are getting broken, and it's you who's getting angry. Okay. So letting go of that through forgiveness, that's one of the things you can do to let go of that particular thing that you're holding on to. Another technique which we did during the meditation was to be aware of the heaviness of what you're holding on to. It may well be an irritation or an annoyance. This will be more like a more situational. For example, something to do with work or something that happened during the day or something like that. And that is to be aware of the fact that we're holding on to something. We're obsessing. Okay, we're obsessing on something, particularly if it's a worry. Okay, we're obsessing on something. We're going around cyclically thinking about the same old thing. Just being aware of that fact that we're doing that, and that it is that subject is it's kind of heavy. It's tiring to deliberately think about it, to try and solve it. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay that? That kind of worry. It's tiring. And when you feel how tiring it is, drop it. It's much easier. I don't want to keep on thinking about that. When you're aware of that, you will automatically drop it. Just as if you were to hold a dumbbell in front of you, after a minute or two, your arm's going to go down. You want to drop it because it's tiring. So that's one technique you can use. It's quite effective for big issues that you're holding on to. But you'll find it is necessary to let things go, simply for the reason that they are heavy. The big issue, all that baggage and shoulders, can't take all that baggage. Let it go. So we have to accept imperfection in ourselves as well. We can be very angry and critical of ourselves. Some people even more so than they are with other people. They're our own worst critic sometimes. We are also imperfect. None of us can achieve all our ideals and goals immediately. We might want to get, or we might want to get that job or that promotion, or to quit this bad habit of ours, and so on. But we all have these same defilements: greed, hatred, anger, delusion, addictions, and so on. We have all these defilements sometimes. So we have to be accepting and forgiving of ourselves too, as well as reflecting that other people similarly struggling to improve themselves and overcome their own bad habits, just as we find it difficult. So it is inevitable, it's unavoidable that we will encounter this in our lives. That realization of the inevitability and unavoidability allows you to just let things be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. Whispering words of wisdom. Okay. We've all heard it, but can we do it? And that's what we have to be mindful of and use it as a mindful technique. Have to be aware, as a general awareness. If we're going to maintain this peace of mind, not just when we're sitting down in meditation, but in our daily life, to be mindful of what we're going on, what we're doing in our minds, what we're holding on to, what we're building up into a big. We've now been thinking about this issue for over 5 minutes already. You have to know that we're building up a storm inside of ourselves. Be mindful of it, and to be wise. Not just know it, but then to be wise to the realities of life, like that imperfection. But one of the realities of life is that what we call these polar opposites. Everything comes in pairs. For example, promotion. Okay, you don't just get promotions. There are also, you don't just get a job. You also have losing a job. You don't just get a partner and married. You also get divorced. These things come in pairs, and you do not have the power to only choose the positive pole, the positive one. You're always faced with the possibility of getting both sides of this. So birth also has death. There's no running away from it. You get both of them. Marriage, well, you're risking a very high percentage of divorce. They're all part of the same equation. You get both of them coming. Similarly, fame. Fame is a fickle thing. When I was at school, there was some schoolmates who just graduated and they hit it big. They were called Bros. Some of them are probably, some people there probably remember them. They were the biggest thing for about a year, or two, maybe 2-3 years, maybe. But they had most number one hits. I think they took the records by storm. But within a couple of years, they were begging on the streets of London. They spent the whole lot and didn't get any more. Quite an incredible thing. Fame is something that comes and goes, and quite quickly too. Not just fame, but your own popularity. Popularity is not something that is static. You get more and more friends, and then you lose lots of friends, and they come and go. That's just the nature of things. Being criticized is one of those things that you'll have to face as well as being praised. It's often said that at school you'll hear much more criticism than you'll hear praise, almost like a 9-to-1 ratio. In marriage, I don't know what the ratio is. You're probably going to get quite a fair amount of criticism and not just the praise. You get both. You cannot try and say, I only want this one, and demand to only get the praise. You're going to have to get both. So accept that, realize that, be aware of that. And if you tell yourself, I'm going to get criticized, so that allows you to accept and be what we have equanimity or serenity towards these things. So the pleasures and unpleasures, the sufferings and happinesses in life, they come and go. Everything all comes in these pairs. And so we're maintaining an awareness of that it's just switching from one to the other. And that allows us to not attach to just one opposite and then have our emotions go up and down, following this barrage of events in our life, and to instead be more neutral towards it, to have more serenity and inner peace. So that's one thing you can also recollect at the beginning of meditation, but it's a very good thing to recollect outside the meditation before you sit down. Another one, a very traditional form of meditation in the Lord Buddha's time, was the recollection of death, that we're all going to die. This is a very powerful recollection, because half the worrying about may never happen, particularly if you're going to die. Is tomorrow guaranteed? No. Unfortunately, it is not. Sudden death is a possibility. Every time you get in that car, that is a possible death trap. That's the reality. And so we're thinking about all sorts of things which we may not even live around to see, particularly if it's long-term things. So when we're trying to deal with worry and things about the future, then the recollection of death can be very powerful. But similarly, for things in the past, resentments and angers that we have, we recollect that, for example, you say you're angry at your child. Okay, how horrendous would it be if your child died that day on the way home or something or other, and the last memory you had was being angry at them and telling them off and being irritated at them. As soon as you think like that, no way I could keep on being angry at them, and you'd let it go and you'd forgive. So recollection of death can also help with anger. You might die today, but they also might die today. Oh, thank you. When we face death, for example, people who have cancer, who are facing, effectively people who have cancer, in the sense that nobody who has cancer knows it initially. So nobody really knows whether they have cancer or not. In fact, it's very hard to detect. The person with cancer is just somebody who knows that they're going to die soon. When in fact, we're all going to die. I mean, it's just this very similar situation. But when you're in that situation, many of the things that you would have thought were really big things now become very small and insignificant. Okay, puts things in perspective. That it's all small stuff, and to not sweat the small stuff. Don't waste your precious time, things which really not essential. Here's another aspect which is one of the realities of life, a classic technique used in the Buddha's time, normally used at a very high level, once we've meditated to a very high level, and is the thing that leads to enlightenment or liberation, is with a deep meditative seeing and wisdom, realizing these three universal characteristics of life and everything in it. That everything is impermanent. That your body, for example, it's impermanent. It's always changing. The hairs fall out. The skin peels off. The nails you cut, for example, they're all always changing. You get a whole new body every 7 years. There's no single cell left over after 7 years. It's been continually reproduced. There is an impermanence to your body, and obviously, like I said, the ultimate impermanence here is it's going to die. There's an impermanence to your emotions. There's an impermanence to your thoughts. They're volatile. They're going up and down, changing all the time. And when you're in meditation, you see that. You see how the mind switches from one topic to another. If you're mindful, you'll see how your moods change during the day from one emotion to another. That is that they are unstable. There's this instability to them. What that means when everything's impermanent is that even the things that you really would like to be permanent, for example, marriage, job, house, car, that kind of thing, even the things you want to be permanent are in fact impermanent. And that creates this stress and suffering because we're trying to hold on to things when their nature is to decay, break down, disappear suddenly, and so on, causing all this crying and suffering and lamentation, despair, sorrow, and all the rest of it. Comes from this, holding on to something which has its own nature of what it's going to do. It's going to disappear in its own time. It's going to break down in its own time. And we get all this stress about the car or whatever, it's broken down. Yeah, that's what they do. Cars break down. That's why we have depreciation or whatever. But maybe it breaks quicker than you expect because you crashed it. That happens, you know. Everything has the nature of breaking down, of being impermanent. And that is dissatisfactory if we're clinging to it being permanent. Because of this, once we realize this, it's not under our control. We think it is our car. We think it is our body. But if it was, and we told it to stay and not to go away, then it would. But we can't. We tell the car not to go away and somebody steals it. What? But it's mine. Well, if it's mine, it would stay there. But it won't. It does what it wants. You know? Same with the body. There's many things that the body does which we would rather it didn't do. For example, get ill. Stop it. No, stays still ill. It doesn't pay any attention to what you say to it. It just tortures you with various illnesses at random times. That's to say, it's not yours. If it was yours, you could command it, but it isn't. And the ultimate time you'll realize that is when you die, and then you really realize that, hey, that's not mine, and that's not me. At a deeper level, that's the going into the deeper Buddhism. But these three things, when we recollect them, what we're worrying about, who we're worrying about, or what we're angry at, and whether it's a secular, like a car or a house or job or whatever, recollecting these things allows us to let go and to make peace with the way things are. Facts are sudden death is possible. Okay, and this is for Americans, not English. And maybe the percentages are different. All right, but the causes of death annually for Americans, that's 36% of them just suddenly drop down dead from a heart attack. That's a big percentage. And that's the case of that you don't know when that's going to happen. It's sudden. There's no chance to put things right, to have chance to just say goodbye to this person, to say I'm sorry to that person, to forgive this person, to sell that thing, to create your retirement fund. There's no time for any of that. It's just sudden. The nature of it, sudden. So why are we holding on to all these things, and why are we delaying all those things? Nice little, and I experience it's definitely the case. Do not fall asleep without having forgiven. So that means, say you have an argument with your partner, do not leave it overnight. Okay. Simple fact, you might not wake up in the morning, or they might not wake up in the morning. Okay. But it does then fester and linger. Okay. It is a very important thing for relationships. Future. So we're going into the worries and anxiety, this modern illness. If I was to do a Google search for anxiety, or I suspect it'd be in the 100 million results that you'll get back, certainly in the tens of millions. It's one of the big search items in Google, anxiety. They're about worries about the future. And when we come down to meditate, it is a big obstacle, obviously, and one of the main reasons that we are meditating. But there are several things you can do to help this before you reach the meditation room. For example, most of you have come here just from work. What I would suggest is that you schedule as much of the things that you might otherwise worry about. It's about time management. A lot of the things that are on your mind is simply because you haven't yet settled them, certainly settling when you're going to deal with them. For example, you can actually put time aside to think about something. Say, tomorrow at this time, I will think about what we're going to do this weekend, or what I'm going to, when I'm going to book up my holidays. Schedule the time you're even going to think about it. Not just scheduling the activity, but even scheduling the planning stages of that. Okay, that can get it out of your head and onto paper, onto the computer. Same with all the to-do lists on your computer, or if you're at work on it, if you like the pen and paper approach, that's fine. Get it down onto pen and paper, your to-do list, your shopping list, or whatever. Get it out of your head, get it onto paper, get it onto the computer. Okay, so you don't then have it left to think about when it comes to meditation. So that's one of the things you can do before you leave work, before you come here. So you've got nothing left undone or unresolved. So these things that come up in your mind about the future, you've got simple choice in your mind is you either schedule when you're going to think about it, if there's something to be done about it, or you just drop it, because meditation is not the time for sorting out all those problems and worrying about them all. Okay, so we're being disciplined here. It's just saying to ourselves that is not the time. We'll do that later, and we'll even set a time for thinking about it. And that's the technique I found very, very effective. And I say to myself, not now, later. And I mean it. I will do that later. If you don't mean it and don't really sort of have an intention about when you might think about it, it will stick in your mind and it'll linger and it'll come back again and again. But if you really put a firm date or time in your mind, for example, before I go to bed, I will deal with that, or whatever. Allow you to let go and carry on meditating. I've noticed that this time management skill allows people who otherwise you think would never be able to meditate very well. For example, CEOs of big companies. And I've taught several multi-billionaires. And surprisingly, they meditate very well because they are able to compartmentalize. I think that would be the word. When you have so many things to manage, you have to be able to switch and clear your desk of this thing to schedule, right, that's tomorrow, and then next item. They don't hold on to anything. Next item. They put it into a certain mental compartment, schedule it into a certain time slot, and focus on the present, on the next item. So that executive quality, that is a very effective way of letting go, and allows them to become very good at meditation. Because when it comes to meditation, they've already scheduled everything else. They've already let go of everything else. It is a skill you already have. Every single time you take a phone call or somebody rings the doorbell or something like that, you drop everything and immediately focus and give all your attention to that phone call. We don't consciously know that we're letting go of everything. We're just used to this. If you're conscious of how you're doing that, notice the next few days, every time you take a call, all right? Or nowadays, I guess it's a message on your smartphone from like an SMS, or it's a Facebook message, or whatever it is, okay? And that you drop everything else and focus on that. Notice how you drop everything else, that little mental act of dropping everything else. Make it conscious, and then you will be able to consciously use that at any time. And then you can do that during the day, at various times of the day. Oh, I'm noticing I'm starting to hold on to something, obsess about something. Whoop, drop it. Focus on something else. Practice learning how to just drop everything like that. And you'll drop everything, clear your desk, clear your mental desk out. So there's nothing on your mind. Just do that frequently. Particularly, we have a little homework you'll see in the diary of, well, 1 minute every hour. Drop everything, empty your mind, meditate for just 1 minute, and then carry on. You use that skill. Just, it's only 1 minute, throw everything away, just as if you're picking up a phone call. And the phone call just keeps on saying Samarahang, for those who know this mantra. Okay, it says that for a minute, or calm, or whatever. So you have to learn how to dismiss and brush off worries. That's the other thing that we're unconsciously doing anyway. Particularly if you're a mother, for example, and sometimes there's the little children will kind of, mom, can I do this? Can I do that? Or whatever. And you're busy, right? And you sort of brush them off and pay no attention to them. In a minute, and then brush them off and carry on doing something. That brushing off is a mental act of putting something in a different compartment for a bit. You can do that same thing with thoughts, those worries that come up into your head. That worry that says in your head that says, oh, we haven't worked out what we're going to say to them tomorrow yet. And you notice that? Not now. Just brush it off like that. It's the same thing. That's the same technique. So if you be conscious of how you're already brushing off people or brushing off situations to later, procrastinating even, use that same procrastination skill and use it to help yourself let go of things. Make it conscious, make it a skill that you can use as you need. Here's a little algorithm, so to speak, you can use in your mind when you have something, a worry on your mind. Do you have a problem in your life? Well, no. If it's no, then obviously there's no need to worry. But usually it'll be a case of, yes, we have some problem in our mind. If it's a yes, is there something you can do about it right now? That's the most powerful question you'll have here, okay? Is there something you can do about it right now? If the answer is no, well, then that's it. There's nothing to do about it right now. So why worry about it? If the answer is yes, well, do it. Stop sitting there thinking about it. Do it. Simple as that. There's only two options here, really. As soon as you then narrow it down to the reality of just these two options, there's something to do about it right now, particularly when you're in meditation. Obviously, there isn't. You're not going to do anything about anything right now. You're sitting on a chair here. You're not anywhere else. Okay. Then, no, there's nothing I can do about it right now. Okay, I can let it go and stop worrying about it. When is the time you will be able to do something about it? When I'm near that situation or near that time, then I can do something about it. Not right now. Another technique we used, and I did it for quite a while with you today, and this is the technique I will normally use, and next week you'll see how we use this. We breathe in and breathe out, breathing out the past, breathing in, breathing out the future, and then do breathing in and breathing out the external world. Those are the three ones I tend to use. Those are the three things that you tend to be holding on to. The act of exhaling sort of, how do you call that? Not psychosomatically, it's the opposite of psychosomatic. It's like a reflex, that's the word, a reflex for letting go. Every time you've ever let go of something, you have exhaled. It's a kind of a sigh. That exhalation is how you let go of things. Now we just sort of reverse it. We consciously exhale when we're letting go of things, whatever's on our mind. We breathe it out. Because we're conditioned to exhale when we're letting go, if we consciously exhale when we're trying to let go, it's easier, very easy to let go. So breathing in, breathing out the past, let it go. And then we breathe in the present moment and breathe out the future. Just like that. Really, particularly if you're at home or anything, you can even make a sound as you do it, a sigh or whatever. If you're in here, maybe you do it a little bit quieter, but basically use the breath to do that. We can also make it a visualization, as I did, particularly later on, on the 3rd, 4th, 5th week, we'll be dealing with visualization. And then we'll focus on breathing in light and breathing out smoke as a mental representation of all the stresses that we're holding on to, and worries, and breathing out all that negativity. And if we do that, getting out all that big, heavy stuff, reflecting on in the different ways until we let go of the angers, letting go of the worries and resentments and so on, our mind will become vacant of any big issues. But it's not going to stay very vacant for long, as you will have discovered in the meditation just now. It doesn't stay vacant for very long because nature abhors a vacuum. It will find something else to think about. That's the nature of the mind. It's always thinking about something or other. Although it is possible to still it, but you need a bit of practice to get there. But what we do, because it's going to be filled with something else, is once we've emptied it and let go of all these big issues, we then deliberately fill it with something else. We choose what to fill it with, and we choose to fill it with something that is pure. Like we have a glass of water, we've cleaned the glass now. Okay, we've cleaned it out of all that stress and suffering, whatever, and anger and resentments. Cleaned that all out, but it's still an empty glass. You have to pour some water into it, drink in it, to get the benefit out of that glass. That's a similar thing. So that is the letting go. Hold on. That is the techniques of letting go. We don't do each one of those, okay, every time we meditate, like I just did with you earlier on. We may only pick one or two techniques depending on your state of mind when you're coming to meditate. Every time is different. Maybe you have a lot on your mind when you come to meditate. Some sessions are like that. Some periods of life are like that. You have more on your mind. But there will be other times when there isn't too much on your mind, and you'll just skip past the step and go on to the next step, which I'll teach you next week about relaxation. It will vary. There is an art to meditation, and that means that we don't have the same technique, the same steps that you just do every single time. You know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, just do them like that. You have to sort of pick the right technique for the right situation, which will take some experience to know, in this situation, I should use this technique. I'm angry right now. So I know that if I go try and relax my body, it's not going to work. So I have to deal with anger, and which technique works for me as well. It's not going to be the same for everybody either. You may find that some of these techniques work better for you than other people. The recollection of death, for example, maybe that's not your cup of tea, all right? But maybe recollecting that everybody is imperfect, and that you are imperfect, and you've done many bad things in your life before. Maybe that works for you better. Who knows? You have to experiment with these techniques, okay? So when you meditate every day, I suggest, 2 times we suggest to meditate when you wake up and before you go to bed, because mostly you'll be working, and so those are the 2 times a day when you have the opportunity, when your mind and let's say is going to get a lot of benefit out of it. So if you meditate before you go to sleep, it'll help you have a good night's sleep. If you do this technique of letting go, it may help you a lot with insomnia. Okay, so try and do this before you go to bed. You'll get to sleep easier and quicker and have a more restful sleep. Similarly, we meditate when we wake up, so that we're starting the day on a good note, basically, recharging ourselves mentally as well, putting ourselves in a good frame of mind, because sometimes we wake up in a bad mood, like we say, like a bear with a sore head, or get out of the bed the wrong side, these kind of things. So we don't get out of bed until we're in a good mood. We meditate first, and that allows us to start the day off well. And if we start the day off well, the whole day will go well as well. So that's all I've got to say on the topic. No? You can't think of anything right now? If you do, when you're during the week, you can write them down in the little book. There's a space for asking me a question, all right? I'll answer anything you like, okay? Anybody else? Any questions? Yes? Okay. That really depends on the person and on their schedule, you see. As a beginner, you'll find you won't yet be able to meditate for very long. I led a meditation just now for about 30 minutes. However, as a new person, you'll probably find that was just about, and as all you can do right now. That will grow quite quickly.